great. Thanks everybody for joining us here. It's Mark Briggs. I'm the sort of co-director of the Midland Wales Advanced Therapies Treatment Centre, and hopefully we're all here today to join the webinar that's been given by a couple of my colleagues, John Atwood and Steve Perks, based out of Birmingham. They're going to describe a system and that they're sort of prototyping and piloting to gather sort of better understanding of the sort of systems and interactions, interoperability and interfacing that we might need in the future to help deliver advanced therapy medicinal products. So this is essentially a sort of an NHS-driven initiative at the moment, but clearly what we need to do is to collaborate and work in partnership with other external organisations and commercial organisations there as well. So as per sort of like standard protocols on these sort of webinars that we all seem to be joining nowadays, I'd ask if everybody could keep their system on mute. I think we're going to try and take questions at the end. So if you could do that through raising your hand, and then I'll try and sort of like step through approximately in order of the questions that are raised, then that would be appreciated. And bear in mind that we also have a sort of a chat function that maybe we could sort of capture questions there as well. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to John and Steve to walk us through the order system. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. Good afternoon, everybody. This is John Atwood, out of the pair of Steve and I. Steve has just been detained on a call, so you might have more of me than we might have been anticipating, but we'll see when and how Steve's able to join. So who are we? Well, Steve is the principal developer for health informatics at UHB. He's had 30 years experience in IT and delivering IT related projects and systems. Currently we have quite a few major systems that we've built. UHB have just produced a genomic EMDT system, which will be rolled out in October, November as the solution for the whole of England for all the genomics MDTs in England. So we have a good pedigree and track record of building successful systems, and also AutoCom systems that we have built and purposed out for clinical need before. A little bit about our background and our pedigree. My name is John Atwood. I've been a project and program manager for over 20 years, and the last 7 within the NHS. One great philosopher said, if you don't know where you're going, then any road will get you there. And for the Schleiermachers and other philosophical people amongst you, you'll recognise that was said by the Cheshire Cat in Alice Through the Looking Glass, but it remains very solidly true. 2 years ago, we started this project without knowing what the road even looked like. So our first months were meetings with our stakeholders, meetings with manufacturers, meetings with logistics companies. We met with their clinical research facilities, and we had meetings with many various clinical staff. And one of the key stakeholders we met with was a cell orchestration platform by the name of Cell. And after doing all that analysis and trying to understand the ATMP space, we sort of did some thinking and imagining and came up with this is work package 6 of the MW-ATTC, some working deliverables, which were, we imagined a dedicated electronic advanced therapies prototype system with the ability to allow ordering and scheduling information of a treatment for a specific patient to be recorded. And the other deliverable that we would try and work towards was a prototype system to collect long-term registry data, which could support tasks such as performance-based payments. That was one of our other work packages, working with health economists, saying if we were able to grab the correct data, everybody could decide what that was, and we could present it within our system, then people may be able to make some performance-based payments out of it. So we did our background and we'd had our thoughts of what we might deliver. We then actually had quite a few workshops with the National Welsh Informatics Service, ourselves, and TrackCell. And we started to think, let's explore and understand the data flows in this patient journey. And let's find all the areas where there are interfaces which we will need to deal with from an IT system perspective. And you can see on this sort of spearmint green line here, we were able to eventually work up a whole list of AU10 to AU90s for the autologous treatment as our way of saying, okay, these are the API interfaces that we need to build. If you're not familiar with APIs, these are the connectors with our IT system. We need to build so other systems can hook into them and pass data information along. The next thing we had to conceive is, what did the theoretical architecture look like of such a system? And if Steve was here, he would describe this as his initial thoughts of what that would be. So we built a system on Microsoft Azure Cloud with two components, to a REST API that's attached to a database. We thought, somewhere down the line, there may be something like an integration server needed, perhaps an open EHR clinical data repository would help us with that. And we built a provisional one out onto our Azure cloud platform. So within that platform, we built into it all those interfaces, which we've called the APIs, listed at AU20 to AU90, and there's another set for the allogeneic treatments as well, which we've also done. It was then up to our partners to come along and attach their very distinct systems to this. So we have successfully had Pharma Trust and their blockchain system integrate with all of those points, and TrackCell are halfway through that at the moment. So we will be able to prove at the end of that we've created a standards-based system with REST APIs, which any outside organization can connect to. If we declare the standards, then people are able to integrate with us. And just by a way of addition, the second deliverable was a prototype system that to collect long-term registry data, enable the performance-based payment things to be considered. We put together, with the help of our research staff, a realistic event schedule as a follow-up to an ATMP treatment, which the one that we made up is, you can see before you, but it tried to be realistic, and we wanted to be able to present that to research nurses via a web page and see if they were able to, first of all, understand it and return data, which we could then put in long-term storage for a long-term, longitudinal understanding of what that patient follow-up looked like, which we have done and was successful. So the next challenge was to, okay, how to progress this, because there is a need within this space for an NHS-based system that can connect through to a local DGH hospital, but it could also attach to a cell orchestration platform, which would do the heavy lifting for the logistics, the manufacturers, and the shippers. So, having conceived of that, we put together some specifications, and one of those things was, how could a clinician order from this system? So what we envisaged was a clinician, the number one here, would choose from a catalogue an ATMP. Secondly, we receive that within our NHS system, and what we're looking for are possible green days from the Cell Orchestration Platform. Green days are those days available where all the ducks are lined up in a row for the manufacturer, the logistics, and the dry shipper, and they can be presented back to the hospital as possible dates for when a patient might come in for their extraction of their tissue. So the cell orchestration will look with all of the pieces that they've got to play with in the jigsaw and return a set of viable green days back to us. And we would pass those back to the local hospital and say, yeah, a week on Thursday, we have got a slot where this would work. Can you schedule the work that you need to do to prepare the patient and get everything ready for the extraction? I suppose then it comes to the challenges when we think about such a system. Even thinking about the happy path, there are many challenges to overcome. The continued analysis of data points for ATMPs. Each of the treatments that we've encountered so far within MW-ATTC, there are quite differences of approach and needs and understandings, and that is something we need to be able to capture and present at the hospital. So when someone tries to order a particular ATMP, we present them with a web page which has all the relevant points on which they will need to fill in before such green days can be sorted. We need to keep on refining our standards-based approach to make this a repeatable copy and paste, so it could be used at any hospital, anywhere, with any ATMP and any cell orchestration. That is the vision that we're trying to work with. It's also going to present us the challenges of patient identifiers from the NHS or using their NHS number, but how that gets linked in to a cell orchestration, a manufacturer, a shipper, a barcode label. How do we make sure that the chain of custody and the chain of identity it is proven all the way through, from extraction from vein to return of that treatment to vein again? And the challenge is, even when that's a happy path, is to have a full understanding from manufacturers and from the ATMP and from all the other stakeholders what we need to have within that system. Of course, we don't live in a perfect world, and we know things just happen. A patient becomes more ill than they were, and that's going to stop the treatment on the day it was anticipated. That needs to be able to be recorded and surfaced, and then passed back to manufacturers via the cell orchestration platforms, and passed back to the manufacturers and shippers and logistics to say we may need to halt or rethink. And then if we just begin to think from a cell orchestration platform plugging into logistics, you know that the lorry breaks down on the M1 or the van, and it's not going to make it in time for a crucial time period. That needs to be picked up as soon as it is viable and returned back through to the hospital as an alert for them. From the manufacturing process, these are highly complex, highly expensive treatments that are being made, and many things can go wrong in that manufacturing space. At any particular point, when things are going awry, alerts need to be picked up and returned as soon as possible to alert the hospital, perhaps to stand down the patient or reschedule that particular patient. When you think about some of the treatments that may need a theatre suite to do injections and radiographic screening, you know, those things are expensive and therefore need to have the ability to be stood down at the earliest possible point. We talked about the shippers themselves, the boxes that this ATMP may travel in, and all the array of things that might be being recorded with inside that box, so about light intensity, about whether that shipper has been opened, whether it's been knocked, whether the temperature has got above the limits. And then there's questions about the QP process, all sorts of things that would stop the treatment from happening successfully, which we need to build in alerts for. So the happy path and the difficult path is something that we will need to continue to work with manufacturers, cell orchestration platforms, pharmacists, other stakeholders within the NHS and the clinicians who are doing the treatments. So if I try and expand a little more fully on the particular work that we are envisaging. So on the left-hand side is the domain of the local NHS hospital. We have ourselves as the system in the centre, and on the right-hand side you have the cell orchestration platform with its links to the logistics manufacturers and shippers, and perhaps several other particular people too. I've mentioned that first here that there might be an order ATMP request for putting a time and date for. So we envisage being able to present at a given hospital if they are offering perhaps 4 types of ATMP treatment. Each of those has a particular interface which the hospital will need to complete before that is passed back end through to the cell orchestration platform. We're hopefully being able to coordinate that messaging. We're picking it up, we're looking for alerts, we're storing any clinical data in an open EHR repository, and we're enabling ETA messages back to pharmacists, clinicians, those who need to understand when is this precious cargo arriving, what state do they need to be ready for it to be received, what temperature does it need to be stored at? What's the thawing process? Is it a treatment that is actually at a normal temperature, and therefore how does that need to go quickly straight to a bedside? I'm just thinking about one of our particular types of trial that we have at the moment, where it's always at ambient temperature and doesn't go through a dry frozen shipping system. So that's what we are envisage building over in prototype over the next year, building on the work that we've already done and we already have in here, which are many of the data points on that travel, but there are many more to deal with, and there's also that alerting system that we need to be able to pass through to whomever needs it on both sides. So I think the idea is the system that we will build. Sorry, I should go back one more. I forgot to mention here, we are looking to do a standards-based connection with the folk on the right-hand side of this diagram. We're looking at the use of REST APIs or possibly linking in with a mirth integration engine using FHIR messaging, which is a form of HL7 messaging, or in fact using HL7 2.3, 2.8 as standards that we will be able to offer a connection point on. And the hope is that if we build this successfully, then we have a consistent interface that any NHS hospital that offers ATMP treatments knows and uses on a day-to-day basis. And we have endpoints that Cell Orchestration Platforms of many and various types can attach to through the standards-based interface. So the benefits. We hope that in doing this and building this IT system, it will enable the NHS to move towards mainstream ordering of ATMPs. This is the push that I think we're all involved in, is trying to make something that is a very different treatment depending on the treatment and with all the moving parts to be more coordinated and more repeatable. When you think about being able to order a CT or MRI scan many years ago, there wasn't that ability to do it. It was a complex and it was new. So we're hoping that this will be the process by which we're enabled this to become more mainstream. As I've mentioned before, having a single user interface for NHS staff to familiarise them, so they're not logging onto 15 different systems. There is one system that will do everything they require it to do in order to allow that ATMP to not only be scheduled, but to happen and all the follow-up also be recorded within it. If we are picking up the right points and following up longitudinally, then we will be able to provide a set of data points to assist with a pay mechanism when others have decided what that might involve with that particular ATMP. Pointed out that we will have a system that can follow up a longitudinal visit for a patient, and if it's decided that an annuity-based return is used, well, we'll have the data about how the efficacy of that treatment played out with that bunch of patients who received it, and that data will be there for others. And we're trying to build a standards-based approach, so we can say this is repeatable. It's nothing unique about what we're presenting here. It is all good open source standards to which anybody ought to be able to connect. And above all, what we hope the system will help with all the rest of you is the adoption and reduce the implementation operational costs of bringing an ATMP treatment to a patient within the NHS. I think that's it from myself. I don't think it's totally me at the moment, so I'm happy to hand over to Mark for questions and comments.